I feel like this might turn into a therapy session or a roast of sorts. So I'm prepared for anything. So I'm just putting that out there.
So are we. And remember, Christmas is coming. Let's be nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's keep the holiday spirit.
That's yes. That's right.
Awesome. Well, I kind of want to start with just like how this happened, right? Like, was this always the plan to work for each other, with each other?
Never.
No.
Well, 12 years ago, Alex was in middle school. He had a different direction that he was planning to take, just hoping to graduate from high school, I think. And I had a career in accounting and...
Well, this was never supposed to be a
family business.
No. In fact, we don't actually think of it that way.
Okay.
It's maybe it's just lazy employee recruiting or something. I don't know. But so when we bought 2W and I walked into the company, it was a fairly small company. Mm-hmm. And we were an Epicor consulting firm. And we had a bunch of independent contractors and a handful of employees. And it really wasn't... we didn't say, hey, this will be great. We'll be able to hire other people that we're related to. Mm-hmm. Although we've always had people that were related in the company.
Okay.
Right. Even early on, we had a husband-wife team that they both actually have retired. But so it's not unusual to 2W, but it certainly was never the plan.
Yeah.
We've had 4 families, and currently we have, besides us, 2 others.
Yeah, right? That's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so we've always had families, and it's worked out well.
Well, and actually, ironically, I'm not a big fan of hiring people who are related to each other.
But here
I could see I'm
just not very good at it. Well, because what happens is you get a weird dynamic, right?
Yeah,
so, because people struggle, they move on, career choices, whatever. You don't want one influencing the other.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think there's a danger in that.
Yes.
Right?
So
But again, here we are.
Yeah,
yeah.
Right? With a podcast. Yeah.
Happy as ever.
Yeah.
So when you two joined, was that like a dinner conversation? Like all of a sudden you were like...
No. You know what? It kind of was.
I think when Alex joined, it was more of a dinner conversation. It was a dinner conversation. Yours was not a dinner conversation.
No. So I started with 2W 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at a crossroads in my position, and I'm thinking about going out and looking for a new job. And at that time, the accountant who was here needed help. We were growing, 2W was growing, and Mark said, well, what about? And I said, this is not going to work. We don't want to put, and as a family, it's a business, it's Mark's career, putting everything in one basket.
Right.
There's not much of a safety net.
There's not much of a safety net.
Well, and I can tell you, I know exactly what happened. Actually, it was over Christmas, and I was driving back from the mall where I had done some Christmas shopping. Mm-hmm. And the current accountant called, and she goes, I can't do this anymore. It's just too much. The business has grown too much. I can't handle it all, right? And the night before, I had Joan go, I can't do this anymore. My job is really horrible, and I need to find a new job.
Yeah.
And I said, ooh, you know what? I can make both these women in my life happy.
Right.
And fix 2 birds with 1 stone.
So I spoke to the woman who was the accountant at the time, and I said, this is what I do, and this is what I can do. Mm-hmm. And then I interviewed for the job. It was good because it was very thoughtful. I never wanted to be the owner's wife that comes in and I don't know what she does here. She shops most of her day, and when she wants, she comes in, she goes. Nobody knows what she does. I have skills, and I wanted to bring value.
Yeah, for sure.
Here I am.
I feel like, and the number one thing you look for in new talent is trust, and that would automatically be applied.
Big part. That's actually a big part of it, is that there is that level of trust that, at least in our family dynamic, there's that level of trust that, there is a unique best interest of the company that is embedded into all of us, right? But we made you interview too.
Yes,
oh yeah,
Alex interviewed, and actually before that, Mark and I talked, and so did Alex. Alex was also an accounting major, has his master's, and was looking for a job
out of college,
straight out of college. And we're like, do not look at 2W.
You're not working here.
And I said, good. I don't want to work there. And all of us went,
yeah.
Good.
I was nervous for that conversation. They were nervous. I was like, oh, I got to tell them, I don't want to work for you.
Yeah.
I want to go off and do my own thing. I got to be my own person. I kind of want to just get wings and and fly away, right? Just for a little bit. And I'm like, oh gosh, I hope I don't crush them like that. And they were one of I think that's
we
the
were
same
the same
thing.
way, going,
Oh, good.
good.
Yeah.
No.
Everybody went, oh, nice. Awesome.
Yeah. And I think that's the key, right? Because you have to experience your own things and like understand how a company is ran and how you have to hold yourself accountable. And it might, if you went right into this business, maybe you might have
we've all
had a different
experienced
mindset.
that, right? Where the kid or the nephew or whatever doesn't really bring a whole lot of value.
Yeah.
You know? And so I think we're all pretty acutely aware that there's actually an extra bit of pressure to bring value because nobody wants to be that.
And that was big on me when I joined. I knew it was something I was going to have to kind of fight against. Is everybody's go, oh, the owner's kid's coming in, great, what's he going to do? You know, and so you have to try just a little extra hard to go, you know, to show, hey, I'm here to provide value. Like, I'm here to work, and this is not just some hand-me-out job. This is,
right.
I was hired on for the skills that I have, and, it just so happens I share a last name with the owner.
Yeah.
So, but don't you fight that or get that preconceived notion even when new people come in?
Yes, I get that a lot of, it's the owner's kid. What's this going to be about? So you have to kind of prove yourself to every new person. Then you also have to worry, people worry, it's the owner's kid. He's a spy. He's going to be watching for me to be doing bad stuff. And I'm like, no, have a conversation with me. It's okay. We can talk about the weekend. I'm not going to tell on you.
Yeah. I think that's a huge stigma, though, is people think that you have favoritism.
Could you be a spy? Could we make you a spy?
No, definitely not.
So now the burning question of how does the work-life separation work? Mostly with you two, because you guys go home together.
We don't go home. We live in the same home.
Right.
But we...
So we drive separately.
Yes.
So I come in earlier than Joan. We usually leave together, but we have our own cars, right? So we drive back. And so, but we usually, when we usually leave together.
Yes.
But as far as separation, to be quite honest, there's almost none.
Okay.
Like our kids are gone, right? Alex is out of the house. Our daughter's out of the house. And so we come back to the house and we talk about work. We talk about 2W. We talk about people. We talk about
because it's our company. It's our livelihood. It's our careers.
Yeah. I mean, they're
it's
almost
consuming. And as it has gotten larger, it's more so.
Yeah. So is that healthy? Probably not. But
you know what? It really helped with that empty nest because we never really.
That's right.
When the kids both moved out, they went to college. We had something to talk about, and it just kind of rolled that way, didn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I talk about work a lot outside of work, so if I had someone that actually knew what I was talking about, it would be
So what would happen is so there is a certain amount of discipline you'd have to have, right? So you come home from work, right, and you come home and you sit down with your person and you bitch about your job or you bitch about something that happened, right? Well, Joan would come home from work before she worked here. She'd come home from work and she'd sit down and we'd be at dinner or whatever, and she would bitch about her job. And you'd like, okay, you're just bitching about your job, whatever. Right. And you'd half listen, or...
Nothing to add on to it.
Right. Well, what would happen then is Joan would come home and she would bitch about her job, but it ended up being my to-do list the next day.
And I did not mean it to be like that. It's how you're like, oh, you're not going to believe what happened.
You need so we had to build in that discipline of, look, sometimes we're just going to complain about our job. And it's not action that needs to be taken. It just happens to be
something that happened.
Right.
And just talking, I'm just telling you about my day.
Yeah. So anyway, that was a thing that we had to work through, and we had to instill that level of discipline.
When I first started, there would be employees who would come to me and say, I need this changed. And I'd be like, okay, go to your manager, and they'd be like, no. You can go to Mark and make this
you're
happen.
next in command.
You've got an in.
You've got an in. Sorry.
How about you, Alex? Not living with them, but seeing them more often outside of work than others, I'm assuming.
It's kind of weird. It's nice because a lot of people, they're like, oh, I see my family, my parents once a week, once a month, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, right? And I'm like, oh, I see them all the time. So we don't like have big family dinners because it's like, oh, I want to get lunch tomorrow. Like so there's that interesting piece of like, I feel like we kind of become closer because I see them more, especially after I moved out and, not living at home. But it is there. You got to be, what they said exactly right. There's that separation of, there is no separation of work and home life. So it'll, maybe we'll call Mark, talk about lacrosse, or, call Joan and talk about some other nonsense, right? And then the conversation always somehow works back to work, and then we start talking about work on the phone. There is a lot of that talk, but I think it's it's productive, and it's nice for me to be able to talk about work with someone who understands work. Right?
Yeah.
So when I am just bitching, right, they get it and they understand it, and I don't have to explain the intricacies of what I do. So there's that. It's really nice just to, okay, hey, I need a vent, and I'll sometimes say that, like, hey, I just got a vent here, like, and. It's so nice.
Do we think that it makes the business better because you have a couple people that are authentically sharing concerns?
We have no agenda except what's good for the company.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, that is true. I would say, yeah, I think so. Now, is that going to propagate across all families that work for the same company? I don't know. But I think in our situation, yeah, I think we're a better organization because of the fact that we work together, and I think we're a better organization because there is that level of trust, and there really is no agenda, right? There's no, Alex doesn't have some secret plot,
right?
It's
he doesn't want to be maybe he does want to be the director of sales, but no. See, and I work for the CFO. I don't want to be the CFO. I am happy right here.
I think these guys don't report. They report to somebody who, actually both of you guys report to somebody who reports to me.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, so they don't report to me directly. And I think that's also really important.
Yeah.
And we've been able to do that. And I'm glad that we haven't gotten into a situation yet, or we've been able to get more mature as an organization. And then in the way that we work with each other before we would go into some sort of a structure like that.
Yeah. I was going to say it's a benefit to have you like spread out among the company instead of like if you all were in sales or something. Yeah, that would be a different dynamic.
And I think that's important that we're all spread out, right? With Joan being in HR, Mark being over in senior leadership, we'll call it, and then I'm over in sales, right? We see all different areas of what's going on. So if there's a problem over in sales, right, and maybe we have a similar problem over in, the finance department area, we can kind of all talk about it. It's really interesting, and it can all kind of flow up.
Yeah, yeah. So how does your daughter feel? Does she know 2W pretty well? I mean, I would assume she would.
I mean, she's actually, we had her at one time, I think she was in high school, I had her doing some data cleansing out of our CRM system.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she knows. I mean, she's got all the hats and the T-shirts and all that stuff. I think she follows us on Instagram and
unpaid ambassador. I like that.
And she's that's right. She's an unpaid ambassador. She's a teacher by profession, and she's really into it. She doesn't have any desire to not do anything else, right? So she's not a
waiting for her
employee in waiting, right?
Okay.
But yeah, I think there are some times, last Thanksgiving where, Alex had his person there, Katie had her person there, and then Katie, so the three of us were talking about work, and the three of them were like looking at each other like,
here we go again.
Let's make,
yes,
exactly.
I hear it at home, and now I've got to listen to it here.
Yeah.
There's good things and bad things. And with Alex joining the company, it is really nice because as your children move out of the house, they move away from you. But I get to see him every day. So I hear about things that happen to him just naturally.
Like 15 minutes in passing, like,
yes.
oh, hey, this.
Hey, I got to tell you about this,
yeah.
about that. The hardest thing, and I don't know if you've noticed it in here, he said, and Joan works here, And Mark, he calls us by our first names.
Yes.
Every time he does that, I cringe. And now it's a habit for him.
Mm-hmm.
He thinks of me as Joan. And so on Thanksgiving, he'll say, "Hey, Joan. Joan didn't invite you to Thanksgiving dinner."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I feel bad doing it, but it was a strategic decision I made early on, and I actually had talked to you guys about it. Like, I didn't want to be walking around, "Hey, mom and dad," at the office, right? Like, there's a special switch that I want to flip. Like, we're at the office, it's work, so then people don't go, "Hey, yo, your father," or "Hey, can you go talk to your mom?" It's, "Hey, can you go talk to Mark? Can you talk to Joan?" And so it's something that I just pushed the issue on. I checked in with them, and I can't flip it off. It's really hard.
It was a great idea, and I completely understand. But when I hear it,
what's really sad is it's a generational thing for the generation below us. They refer to their parents by first name.
Mm-hmm.
They do?
Yeah, like all the time. Like not for work. Yeah.
Oh.
Right? And my mom was like, "You can never not call me mom. Like, you're the one of 3 that can do that. Like, you have to." And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I have no desire not to."
Yes,
so.
you are my mom.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was one of my questions, because in the beginning, I was biting my tongue not to refer to Mark as your dad. Like, make a comment like, "Oh, your dad said this, your dad said that."
Well, I think what it does, though, is when you do that, it keeps that separation.
We try really hard.
Like, well, I'll refer to you in a work environment to Alex as Joan. But then I'll say something like, "Oh, hey, your mom's car's in the shop and I got to go pick it up."
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
If it's work, it's Joan, but if it's personal, it's mom.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are there any other hard things you had to, like, mentally change when you all started working here?
Mark and I try and keep our private life private.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
And that's way difficult because it gets out there more.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
that's the hardest one, is not sharing undue personal information or things that they don't want others to know, right? Like, you tell the goofy stories, maybe back when you're in college or high school.
Yeah.
But you always got to remember, do I want to share that? Because that story also could implicate other people that are here.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point, because there are a ton of embarrassing stories that your parents have about you.
Oh,
yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's relatable, and I have to be very careful because I got a whole bunch of stories about Alex.
Yeah.
And I have to be very careful about, because I may tell this, it might be a situation where I might share a story about my son and what he did at this thing in high school, but I have to remember that my son who did this thing in high school is the peer to the people that I'm talking to.
Right.
And he's working for respect.
Yes.
Yeah, that's something I didn't think about. That'd be hard to do. You should have just, if you knew all this was happening in the beginning, you should have just made up another son. So you could always say, it was Eric.
I never thought of that. I never thought of that. Or make up another wife?
Slipped up? Yeah.
That'd be expensive. I'm not interested
Say
in
my
that.
first wife.
Yeah, my first wife. You are my first wife.
Yeah, all right. Well, my second wife.
Yeah. So do you ever think about future in terms of would it be a goal to keep this in the family? I know you don't like to say it's a family business, but
that's a really good question, and my initial response is no, because I don't look at it as a family business, right? So what's the succession plan? I don't know. It's actually something that we as a corporation are working on. Not we as a family, but we as a corporation are working on. I don't know. Right? So, is Alex's goal to take over someday?
Is it your goal?
No, I haven't actually thought that far ahead, in all honesty. Yeah.
That's fair.
Joan's going to take over.
That's right.
That's really who's she's going
to force us out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mark and I are obviously in this for the long haul. Alex is an employee, a well-valued employee, also our son, and we separate those things.
Yeah.
And if this suddenly isn't good for him, that he's looking to take his career in a different path, we would have to respect that and graduate him.
And I think that's a unique position that a lot of people who work with family or in a family, not family business, as we're going to call it here, is you can feel trapped, right? I'm here, I have to work here, and I can't go anywhere because if I leave, I'm going to alienate my family.
Right.
But that's the unique thing about kind of how we've separated it is let's say tomorrow I do want to go do something else, right? Had to have that conversation and they'd be okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't feel trapped here. So it makes work, I think, a little more fun because I'm like, I'm here by choice and I like doing what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as I keep liking what I'm doing, I'm going to stay here.
Yeah.
One very difficult thing. I never know when to say, whether it's somebody that we're interviewing or a new employee, well, this is my husband.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I want to take it just a little bit farther and say, we've been married for a long time. This is not...
We didn't work here and then get married. Yeah.
It was the CEO.
That's a good point.
Creepy situation.
Yeah. I didn't think about that.
Who was the HR woman.
There's some bitter other Mrs. Jameson somewhere.
Yeah.
The bitter one is me.
Who's got half the company.
Right here. It wasn't, some scandal type of thing.
Yeah.
Well, and I think we get that too, where so Alex and I will be on a client call,
mm-hmm.
and we look nothing alike, so it's really hard. Yeah.
Well, it's because I can grow a beard.
Get out of here.
Burn.
So we, and our names are underneath. So Alex has the old naming convention where it was just first name,
mm-hmm.
and we did that on purpose so it wouldn't be completely obvious.
Yeah.
That what his last name was, and we'll have people that'll put two together, are you guys? Or we gave out our business cards.
Mm-hmm.
We're oh. Is this
wait
a coincidence?
Yeah.
Or and there's always that weird,
mm-hmm.
fairly awkward moment where we have to make a joke that it's a good thing you look like your mom. Or
right? Or you guys related, and it's just unfortunate. Unfortunately, and
right.
Then that's it, and just you try to squash it really quickly. It's
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It is kind of like an awkward thing to bring up. It shouldn't be, and it shouldn't be but it just kind of feels like it is in a sales call, and so it's just cool. Move on from it.
Well, because I think to some degree there is a lack of or a reduction in credibility for some reason. Mm-hmm. And you have to work a little harder.
And I think it's because of the stigma of there's been so many family businesses where the next generation comes in and they're just, you see them once a week and they spend all their time golfing and they're never there. That story is too common, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think and everybody thinks about that. So when we jump on those calls, that's where their mind goes is, he's just dragging this kid along. Great.
But don't you feel like you have to work a little harder?
Oh, yeah.
Because of your last names?
100%.
I was going to say, if anything, you're probably held to a higher standard. Cause
you are.
Yeah.
Or you hold yourself to a higher standard.
You hold yourself to a higher standard. I don't know if anyone expects it, but you do.
And it's that you got to overcome any kind of that false narrative is, okay, I got to try a little harder. I got to go a little more above and beyond. And
especially when you first started, Alex, I really noticed that our technology stack is huge. How hard you try to understand that.
Yeah. I will say there is the advantage of hanging out at, watching Sunday football. Right? Hey, let's come over to grab dinner. And I'm able to talk about the solution portfolio, talk about my deals that I'm having, kind of like you would just casually bring up what's going on in your world, but he knows. So I was able to get more coaching on off business hours, right? So I was getting coached at 8:00 at night and we'd just be on the phone. And I think that helped me accelerate kind of my career here. I was able to do extra study sessions with people who know what they're doing.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good value add.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
I do want to say, too, that's why having a LinkedIn profile is important for your case of showing people that, I actually had a career here before working at 2W.
Oh, yeah.
So if you do go on my LinkedIn, you can see that.
So you bring in your other experiences and everything else. And and I think that's part of it. And I can't comment on anybody else's business with family or whatever you're calling this.
Yeah.
But I think having these guys come in with a background and a career and experiences that they can bring to the table, both of these guys are immensely qualified for the jobs that they hold.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And it's I would end up hiring them anyway.
Yeah, right.
Right, even if they weren't related to me.
Yeah, for sure. And I think everyone in the company sees that. So
Mark and I had to set boundaries. As we mentioned, I would wake up in the morning, and because I'm an early riser, and would start thinking about things, about your day, and da-da-da. Mark would wake up, and I would I would say, this, and this. We need to... And he would say, you've got to give me 10 minutes.
Yeah. Let me have coffee.
That's right.
I can't take inbound the moment I open my eyes.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, well, I've been up for 45 minutes. Here you go.
Yeah.
I can get that. And it's sometimes I have had to do, speaking of boundaries, like sometimes I'll call these guys and say, hey, not work talk. And just say that right away, or I'll shoot them a text message and be like, hey, give me a shout, not work, not about work. I don't want to talk anything work. And I'll say that right in the front of the call, don't want to talk about work. If it divulges into that, let's kill it. I had a long day.
You and I basically have 3 separate conversations. It's either work, lacrosse, or something's broken at your house.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's about right. And speaking of lacrosse, I think that helped us to, work better together here. So me and Mark, we were lacrosse officials. So one of my first jobs in high school, as soon as I could drive, was to officiate lacrosse. I played it. I was like, heck yeah, let me go be a ref. But I couldn't drive at the time when I wanted to do it. So, of course, I'm like, hey, Dad, can you take me to ref training? It's 3 hours, and it's all the way in this pain in the butt place.
Yep.
And he's like, oh, yeah, sure. I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
Might as well get trained too.
Yeah.
And so he sat through the training with me, and we proceeded to officiate for the next 6-7 years together.
Yeah, I mean, every summer, the tournaments, and...
So we worked together in, I wouldn't say high stress. I mean, there is some high stressful situations we were reffing towards before I switched over to the dark side of coaching. We were doing, high school tournament games and state playoff games, and we were doing higher level games together. And so, there'd be some intense situations. So we knew how to work with each other, right? Outside of just, hey, this is my dad and I've known him forever.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Working with others, coming on with a plan. How do we overcome adversity kind of together, and I think that helped a lot. I really do.
I think that's a good point. I think you're right about that. I hadn't thought about that. Inherently, we get along.
Well, we've always been close too, and I think that's helped.
Yes.
That's what makes it work.
It does.
I truly believe that, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for hopping on, and we'll be back.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Nice job.